Our friend Anita Brown Graham, thank you much for joining us again on North Carolina Now.
It's always wonderful to be with you and your colleagues.
You have just recently wrapped up the 2015 Emerging Issues Forum.
We have.
30th anniversary. The event was already sold out before you even began, which speaks to the topic you selected this year, which was how technology and innovation is changing how we live and do business.
Absolutely. I don't think there's a single person in any community in North Carolina who isn't feeling the effects of a changed world, how we live, how we work, how we play. And all of us recognize ultimately the state's economic future lies in the hands of how we grapple with these changes. And so it probably shouldn't have been a surprise to us that there were so many people from so many corners of the state who wanted to be in the Raleigh Convention Center to participate in the forum. Equally not surprising, I think, were the number of people who joined us on the live stream, paying attention and really participating with those of us who were together in the convention center. It was a wonderful gathering of North Carolinians.
And for those folks who were not able to attend or stream online, part of the discussion was that came out of the discussion was the strategies for responding to the impact of how technology has basically essentially taken over. What strategies were discussed?
Well, it's really interesting. I think for many people who participated in the forum, they were surprised to find that North Carolina is not as well positioned as we may have thought in the innovation economy. The reality is North Carolina is somewhere in the middle of the pack. And you know, in North Carolina, we do not like to not be leaders. And so we spent some time looking at why that was so. And there are really three primary reasons that we are distinguished from those communities or those states that are at the head. It's the number of people who have a bachelor's degree or higher. It's the number of firms that are high intensity in their technology, and it's the number of people who work in STEM occupations. As a result of that, we probably shouldn't be surprised that the three primary strategies coming out of this forum, as people voted on what they thought this state should focus on, they said, look, we need to work on the pipeline. We need our schools to become community hubs of innovation, where people of all ages come together to really explore the opportunities in innovation. We need to make sure that we are educating our students about opportunities within STEM occupations, and we need to particularly do that for demographics that are underrepresented in STEM. We talked a lot about that.
Absolutely.
And then the third thing they said is we really need to be in a place where we are thinking about how we move innovation in our communities in a way that moves North Carolina's needle.
And that's a great segue. When we think about innovation and technology, often the focus is on businesses, corporations, and the school system. But you also, moving forward, are trying to reach out in those other pillars of the community. You mentioned churches.
Absolutely. So there are two things that were clear coming out of the forum. If we thought we were a little dampened in our enthusiasm, recognizing that North Carolina isn't doing great overall, what we realized we're doing really badly is including all people in this innovation economy. And it really falls into one of two categories for concern. One is the lack of diversity of those of us who are working in innovation related economies, and not just people are being left behind, but entire parts of the state are being left behind. So today there are 22 counties out of 100 in North Carolina that can really be said to be participating actively in the innovation economy.
Wow.
That means that there's 78 counties that are not. If we want to move the needle as a state, we've got to do some work in our cities, and we're paying attention to that. But we also have to do some work in our rural communities. And churches as anchor institutions, really important in terms of bringing people together, planning, figuring out where the assets are, and creating a space from which innovation might be able to flourish.
And you also, some of the discussion that came out of the forum this year was the critical decision points for economic developers and policymakers.
Sure.
Put that in layman's terms for us.
Well, it was quite wonderful. Governor McCrory came and spoke at the forum, and he talked about some of the things that need to happen at the state level in order for this community level innovation to really take place. So we know, for example, that North Carolina is not one of the top states with respect to venture capital. No matter how many great ideas you have, if you don't have financing abilities, you're not going to be able to move those ideas to market.
That's
So
right.
how wonderful to have the governor talk about some of the innovations in government he sees that could create some opportunities for the private sector to partner with the public sector on some of these issues. Obviously, it's also true that North Carolina is very rich in terms of its universities. Lots of great basic research is happening at our universities. The question is, how do we accelerate getting those things from the lab to the market so that they create an economy for North Carolina?
Yes, and speaking of universities, although the 30th anniversary of the forum has just passed us, the Institute for Emerging Issues
Absolutely.
is day in and day out working on these issues, housed right at
Absolutely.
NC State University. So what's next for the Institute?
Well, we're going to spend the next 2 years, we think, working on innovation. We are now, as I've said, moving this work out into communities and regions across the state with lots of different groups. The response to the forum continues to, quite frankly, astound me. So there are calls every day from people saying, okay, I heard about this. I'm ready to do some work. What can you do to help us? And that, of course, is our mission at the Institute, to help people to think and to help them to do. As we're doing that, sometime around June, we'll be gearing up for the 31st Annual Emerging Issues Forum, which will be on a related topic. Don't ask me because I can't quite tell you yet. Still a secret. Stay tuned until September when we'll be ready to announce that. But be prepared for it to really build on the energy, momentum of this work around innovation. North Carolina is preparing itself for real opportunities. We're going to be a leader in this new economy, and I'm just excited that the Institute for Emerging Issues can do a little itty-bitty part to support the state in that work.
Well, we're excited, too, to be partners with the Institute.
Thank you.
And while we are all anticipating what's coming in June, in the meantime, if our viewers would like to find out more about what came out of the forum and the work of the Institute, where should they
Let
go?
me encourage them to go to www.emergingissues.org. There'll be an opportunity to actually watch all of the forum speakers and have that benefit, but also to participate in the conversations about how we continue to move the needle forward in North Carolina.
Anita Brown Graham, it's always a pleasure to
Thank
have
you.
you. Please come back and see us again.
Absolutely, my pleasure to be here.